The storm had been raging for hours, a symphony of thunder and relentless rain pounding the roof of the cabin. Wind howled through the trees like some angry spirit outside, and every few minutes, the lights flickered with the threat of darkness. I lay there, naked, sprawled across the bed with the window cracked open just enough to let the cool mountain air sweep across my damp skin. The sheets clung to my thighs in slow, lazy waves, but I didn't care. It had been a long week. A long month, hell, a long year. This cabin was supposed to be peace, solitude, escape. I'd only arrived earlier that afternoon. My cousin, Malik, let me use the place after I finally admitted I needed to get away. Away from the city, from people, from the echoing silence that filled my apartment after Darius left. I didn't even pack much, just a duffel, some books, and an overworked playlist of music I hadn't updated in years. The hot shower I took after unpacking had worked its magic, loosening the knots in my shoulders, numbing the ache that seemed permanently lodged in my chest. Now, here I was, letting myself breathe, vulnerable, exposed. I don't usually do this. Lie naked in a stranger's bed, even if that stranger is family. But it felt honest, like I was finally peeling back the layers of myself, letting go. Then I heard it, a soft, distant creak. I blinked, eyes shifting toward the door of the bedroom. For a moment, I thought it was just the wind. The old cabin, probably moaned like this all the time, but then it came again, slower this time, closer. A deliberate pressure against old wood. I sat up. My heart didn't race at first. I just listened, told myself not to freak out. It was probably something outside, a tree branch, an animal. But then came another sound, this one unmistakable. Footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps, moving across the living room floor. Wood groaned under weight, heavy, human. I reached for the edge of the bed, instinctively scanning the room for something, anything, I could cover myself with. My towel, damp and half-curled on the edge of a chair, was the only option. I snatched it and wrapped it around my waist, trying not to make a sound. My pulse started to pick up. A cold sweat broke across my back. I knew I locked the front door. I checked it, twice. The key was still in my duffel. No one should be here, not in the middle of nowhere. Not in the middle of a storm like this. My phone was charging on the nightstand. I grabbed it, but the screen wouldn't light up. It was dead. Just my luck. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the noise, like the air itself had paused. I stood slowly, bare feet barely making a sound on the hardwood floor. Every shadow in the room suddenly felt alive, watching me, reaching for me. The flickering light overhead buzzed, then finally blinked out, plunging the room into a pale half-darkness lit only by the occasional flash of lightning through the window. Another creak, this time closer. Just outside the bedroom. I held my breath. And then, as if the storm itself inhaled sharply and held it, the doorknob turned. I tightened the damp towel around my waist with one hand, the other bracing lightly against the wall as I crept toward the bedroom door. Every part of me was on edge. Not the kind of nerves you feel when you're spooked by your own shadow, but the kind that tells you this is real. My mind played through every possibility, none of them good. My breathing was shallow, quiet. I pushed the door open slowly, letting it groan just slightly, and stepped into the hallway. That's when I saw him. He was just standing there at the end of the hall, tall, broad, soaked from head to toe like he'd just emerged from a flood. His hoodie was plastered to his chest and arms, highlighting the outline of a body that had clearly seen years of hard labor or pain, maybe both. Water dripped steadily from the edge of his sleeves and down his fingertips, forming small puddles. At his boots, which were caked in mud and God knows what else. He didn't say a word, just stood there, staring. I froze mid-step, heart thudding so loud in my ears I couldn't even hear the storm outside anymore. My fingers dug into the towel at my waist, instinctively clutching it tighter. He wasn't blinking. His dark eyes, locked on me, intense but unreadable, like he wasn't sure if he was seeing something real. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded, trying to mask the tremble in my voice with a layer of steel. I felt anything but brave. Mostly cold, naked, and completely unprepared to deal with a mountain of a man in the middle of a blackout. He blinked. Finally. His voice came low and gravelly, like it hadn't been used in a while. "I didn't mean to scare you. I thought this place was empty." That was it. No explanation, no apology, just that. He took a slow step forward. I backed up instantly, tightening my grip on the towel like it was armor. "Don't move," I snapped, eyes darting down the hallway, looking for something I could use if I had to. A lamp, a chair, anything. But he didn't come any closer. He just stood there, dripping, breathing heavy, watching me. "Thought it was empty?" I repeated, struggling to keep my voice even. "That's not a great excuse for breaking into someone's cabin." "I didn't break anything," he replied, calmly. "The door was unlocked." "Bullshit. I knew I locked it. Unless—" I glanced toward the front entrance. It was just out of view, past the corner. Had he been in here this whole time, lurking while I was in the shower? While I was naked and defenseless? "What do you want?" I asked, my voice thinner now. He shrugged slightly. "Somewhere dry, just for the night." His casual tone sent a chill down my spine. There was something too calm about him. Not exactly threatening, but not safe either. He looked like someone who had seen too much, been through worse, and wasn't afraid of a confrontation. I tried to size him up, but my brain wouldn't stop spinning. Was he homeless? A runaway? An escaped convict? Was this cabin even safe anymore? "I should call the police," I said quickly, glancing back toward the bedroom where my dead phone still sat, useless. "You could," he said. "Or you could let me stay until the rain stops. Then I'm gone." Another flash of lightning lit up his face for half a second. Sharp jaw, scruffy beard, a scar just under his eye. He didn't look afraid. He didn't look angry, just tired, like life had worn him thin. But his eyes were still locked on mine, unblinking. Something in me stirred. I didn't trust him, but I couldn't look away. The lights cut out with a final crackle, plunging the cabin into darkness just as the wind howled loud enough to shake the windows. I flinched, heartbeat racing, as the only illumination left came from the jagged flashes of lightning that burst across the sky outside. The stranger, still standing there, didn't even flinch. He just turned his head slightly, as if he was used to darkness swallowing up a space like this. Then came the rain, louder now, angrier. It slammed against the roof and walls like it was trying to get in, drown us both. I stepped back from him, instinctively putting more distance between us, but part of me knew it didn't matter. We weren't going anywhere tonight. Even if I wanted to leave, the roads out here would be flooded. No signal, no power, no backup, just the two of us. "Damn storm," I muttered under my breath. "I wasn't lying," he said finally. "I didn't know anyone was here. My truck broke down about a mile out. I've been walking through this mess for an hour." I didn't say anything. I didn't believe him. Not fully. But I didn't have a better theory either. And what was I supposed to do? Kick him back out into that hellish rainstorm? As much as my nerves screamed at me to push him out the door, something else kept my feet glued to the floor. "Stay there," I said sharply. Then I turned and headed to the linen closet. I grabbed a clean towel and one of Malik's old hoodies and sweats. The guy was built like a bear, but I figured they'd fit. I came back, tossing the bundle toward him, keeping my distance. "Dry off, you're dripping everywhere." He nodded, silent again, and peeled off his soaked hoodie. It hit the floor, with a slap, followed by the shirt beneath. I didn't mean to look. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. His body was all hard lines and muscle, scarred and bruised in places, like life had carved itself into him. A faded tattoo snaked up his ribs, a ladder with fire curling around it. I didn't recognize the symbol, but it felt heavy with meaning. His skin gleamed with rainwater in the dim light, each drop sliding down his chest like a slow temptation. I swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of my own bare skin beneath the towel. I turned away. I'm Jordan, I said, if only to fill the thick silence. Kellen. He slipped into the clothes I gave him, rough hands moving slowly, deliberately. The hoodie fit snug across his shoulders. He looked even bigger in it. You live out here? He asked. No, just visiting. He nodded again as if that made sense, as if anything about this made sense. Firefighter? I asked, glancing at the tattoo. Used to be, he said. Long time ago. Now, I just move. Move? Town to town. Place to place. Never anywhere long. I should have felt more uneasy, and part of me still did. But another part of me, the quieter, deeper part, leaned toward him with a quiet hunger I hadn't felt in a long time. I should have wanted him gone. But I didn't. The storm didn't let up. If anything, it seemed to double down as the night went on. The kind of relentless downpour that makes you feel like the world outside is washing itself clean. The wind was still clawing at the windows, and the power hadn't flickered back on. The cabin had settled into a dark, hushed stillness, broken only by the occasional creak of old wood and the rain's steady percussion on the roof. I lit a few candles and placed them on the table between us, their soft, golden glow throwing flickering shadows against the log walls. It made everything feel quieter, intimate, almost too intimate. Kellen sat across from me, arms crossed, hoodie sleeves pushed up to his forearms. He looked calm, but not relaxed, more like a man who'd trained himself to live inside stillness. I poured 2 glasses of wine from the bottle I brought, the red glinting deep in the candlelight. He hesitated before taking it, then nodded. His thanks. At first, the conversation barely scraped the surface, the usual dance. Small talk about the storm, the cabin, the weird squealing pipes in the bathroom, but it didn't stay there for long. It's been a long time since I sat like this, he said eventually, rolling the wine around in the glass like he didn't trust it. Just talked? Talked to a stranger in a blackout? I offered with a crooked smile. He smirked. It was barely there, but it changed his whole face. Softened it. Talked to someone without wondering what they wanted from me. That sat between us for a second. I stared at him, watching the candlelight play against the hard edges of his face. You think I want something from you? Don't you? I thought about that. Really thought about it. I want a quiet night, I said, and maybe someone who doesn't look at me like I'm broken for still missing a guy who didn't know how to love me back. He looked at me then. Really looked. What happened? I hadn't planned to tell him. But it came out anyway. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the silence. Or maybe it was something in the way he listened. Not like he was waiting to speak, but like he actually wanted to know. I told him about Darius, about the years wasted in limbo, loving someone who always had one foot out the door, about the nights I spent curled up on one side of the bed, hoping for a body that never turned toward me, the cold silences, the final goodbye that felt more like a shrug. I wasn't enough, I said, staring into my glass. Kellen leaned forward slightly. Or maybe he just couldn't see what he had. There was no pity in his voice. Just quiet truth. And somehow, that made it worse. And better. He took another sip of wine, then leaned back in his chair. His eyes were on the candle now, but his words were aimed at something deeper. I used to run into burning buildings, he said softly. Then one day I stopped. I don't even remember the last one. I just left. Never went back. Why? He paused. Because I realized the fire outside wasn't as dangerous as the one inside me. His hand was resting on the table. Mine found it without thinking. Fingers brushing. Tentative. Curious. Electricity passed between our skin. Not the jolt of lust, but something quieter. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. We sat there in the flickering candlelight, our hands barely touching, breathing in sync. Nothing else moved. Nothing else needed to. Nothing happened. But somehow, everything did. The morning came gray and thick, with mist, the kind of damp air that clung to your skin like memory. The rain hadn't stopped completely, but it had calmed to a gentle drizzle, whispering across the leaves outside. The cabin felt heavy with unspoken things. Tension hovered in every corner like smoke, the kind you didn't notice until you breathed it in and felt it burn. I found myself watching Kellen more than I wanted to admit. The way he moved through the kitchen barefoot, damp hair falling over his brow, hoodie hanging off one shoulder like it didn't belong to him. There was something about his silence, about how his eyes always seemed lost in places far beyond the room. I wanted to reach into that silence and pull him out, wrap him in something warm, let him know he could rest, here with me. But I didn't know how to say that. Instead, I lingered in the kitchen longer than I needed to, our arms brushing once, twice, each time like striking flint against stone. My body was aware of his even when I wasn't looking. The way he leaned against the door frame, the way he exhaled like he was holding something in all the time. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked quietly. He shrugged. "I've slept worse places." That's not an answer. He looked at me then, and there was something in his eyes, something guarded. "I sleep when I need to, that's all." I swallowed the lump in my throat, feeling frustration build in my chest, slow and sour. "You always this vague, or is it just for me?" He turned, walked away, and something in me snapped. "You're hiding something," I said, louder now. "You show up in the middle of the night, say nothing about where you've been or where you're going. You give me these pieces, these fragments, and expect me to just accept it?" He stopped, didn't turn around. "Why do you even care?" His voice was low, sharp. "Because you're here," I snapped. "In my space, in my life, whether I wanted you in it or not. And I can't figure out if I'm supposed to be afraid of you or... "What?" he barked, finally facing me. "You don't know me, Jordan. You don't want to." "Try me," his jaw clenched, eyes blazing. Then, just like that, he turned and pushed out the front door, slamming it behind him so hard the windows rattled. Rain swallowed him whole within seconds. I stood there, chest heaving, my heart thudding in my ears. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then 2. By the time I threw on my boots and ran out into the rain, the sky had darkened again. I followed the muddy path behind the cabin, calling his name, my voice cracking under the weight of something I didn't understand, something desperate. I found him near the edge of the woods, crouched against a tree like the storm had wrung him out and left him hollow. His clothes clung to him, soaked and dripping. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides, head bowed. "Kellen, don't," he growled. "I told you I wasn't staying." "Then why are you still here?" I shouted, rain sliding down my face, mixing with the heat behind my eyes. "Why haven't you left?" He looked up, and for the first time, I saw him. Really saw him. Not the guarded drifter, not the ghost of a man, but him. Raw, shaking, terrified. "I don't know how," he whispered. I stepped closer, slowly. "Then let me show you." And just like that, he reached for me. Feral, hungry. We crashed into each other like a storm, lips bruising, hands desperate, breath ragged. There was no finesse, no grace, just need. Weeks, months, years of loneliness poured into that kiss, into that moment. We weren't trying to make sense of it. We were just trying to feel alive. We didn't speak as we stumbled back through the rain, soaked to the bone, hands clutching, mouths crashing when we could manage between gasps. The door to the cabin slammed behind us, the storm muffled, but the storm between us raging louder. We barely made it 2 steps inside before our mouths found each other again. This time hotter, messier, less restrained. His hands were already under my shirt, tugging, gripping, pulling me closer like he couldn't stand the distance between our skin. I didn't resist. I didn't want to. My shirt came off first, then his hoodie, sodden and heavy as it hit the floor with a slap. I pressed him back against the wall, teeth grazing his jaw, and he groaned, low and guttural, like I'd torn something out of him that had been buried for too long. He grabbed my waist, pulled me into him. We collided, chest to chest, hips aligned, breath catching between kisses that were more like confessions than anything spoken earlier. He lifted me without asking, like it was instinct, and I wrapped my legs around his waist, my back thudding softly against the hallway wall. His mouth never left mine. I could taste the rain on his lips, the ache in his tongue, the way he kissed like this might be his last night alive. There was no choreography, no practiced rhythm, just hunger, urgency, truth. We moved together like we'd always known how, each touch igniting the next, each gasp giving way to a moan, a press, a grind that made the whole world vanish. The bedroom door hit the wall behind us, barely registering as we tumbled inside. The towel around my waist was gone. His sweatpants followed, hands everywhere, mapping scars, gripping thighs, cupping faces like we were afraid we might disappear. He hovered over me, eyes flickering with hesitation just once. That small, broken pause where we both saw each other. Really saw. "This okay?" he rasped, voice hoarse, eyes burning into mine. "Yes," I breathed, already reaching for him again. "Don't stop." What followed wasn't just sex. It wasn't even just release. It was something deeper, more sacred. He moved with reverence, not performance. Every touch felt deliberate, like he wasn't just learning my body, but listening to it. Our bodies tangled, sweat mixing with rain, lips traveling paths down skin like worship. There was no filter, no fear, only surrender. And in the middle of it, in the mess of limbs, the press of our chests, the ragged gasps and whispered names, something bloomed. Not just lust, not just craving, but recognition. Soul meeting soul in the middle of nowhere, in the eye of the storm. In a cabin that, for one wild night, felt like the center of the universe. And when we finally lay tangled together in the afterglow, breathless and aching, I didn't feel empty. I felt found. The storm had finally begun to fade, its tantrum tapering off into gentle drizzles tapping against the windows. The world outside was quiet again, like it had exhaled. Inside, the air felt just as still, thick with what we'd done, and what we hadn't said yet. Kellen's arm was slung over my chest, heavy and grounding, our legs tangled beneath the sheets. His skin was warm against mine, and every now and then, I'd feel his breath along my neck, slow and uneven, like he was still trying to come down from everything. I didn't speak. I didn't want to break it. But then he did. "I used to think, if I kept moving, I wouldn't feel it anymore," he murmured, voice barely a whisper against my collarbone. I turned to him, heart suddenly pounding again, but not with lust this time, with something far more fragile. "Feel what?" He exhaled. "Everything." The disappointment in my dad's eyes when I told him I wasn't marrying the woman they picked. The silence that followed. The shift in my brother's voices. Like I stopped being one of them overnight. He paused. I didn't interrupt. I stayed in the firehouse because it was the only place I still felt useful, like I mattered. Then one call went bad. A kid died. I was the last one to see him alive, and I couldn't save him. His voice cracked, but he didn't stop. After that, I couldn't sleep. Couldn't breathe in the uniform. I left without a word. Been drifting ever since. I reached for his hand beneath the sheets and laced our fingers. I didn't plan to stop here. He said, "I wasn't supposed to find you." His eyes met mine, wide and raw. "And now, I don't know how to leave." My throat tightened, because I felt it too. The ache of something starting where nothing was supposed to grow. The danger of it, the beauty of it. But it was messy, complicated. My life was in pieces. His was a road with no map. "I don't know how to ask you to stay," I whispered. "But I don't want you to go." He pulled me closer, burying his face in my neck. "Then don't ask. Just let me be here. Tonight." And so I did. And maybe that was enough. For now. The storm had finally lifted. The dark clouds breaking apart like bruises fading into the sky. A soft golden light stretched across the floor as the sun rose. its warmth filling the cabin with a quiet peace that felt almost sacred after the chaos of the night. Kellen was already moving around the room, gathering his things, pulling on his soaked clothes from last night. There was a heaviness in his movements, like he was carrying something inside him he couldn't put down. The smell of coffee hung in the air, but it didn't ease the tension between us. I stayed in bed, watching him, the silence between us stretching longer than it should. "I didn't mean to mess things up," he muttered, not looking at me. "You don't need this. You don't need me." I swallowed the lump in my throat. My heart hurt in a way I didn't have words for. "You didn't mess anything up," I said, my voice rough. "Maybe I needed you to creep in. Maybe I've been waiting for someone exactly like you." He paused, slowly turned to face me, eyes wide and vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. "You're not a mess," I added, sitting up, feeling my pulse quicken. "You're just real." Kellen's breath caught, a flicker of hope crossing his face. He stepped toward me, slowly, like he was afraid I might vanish. When he reached me, he kissed me again, but this time it wasn't hurried, wasn't frantic. It was slow, tender. It was like we were both learning how to breathe again, how to trust something we weren't ready for. I pulled him closer, my fingers threading through his hair as we kissed, the world outside forgotten. In that moment, nothing felt uncertain. A week had passed since the storm, and I was back in the city, trying to slip into my old life like nothing had changed, but something inside me had. I didn't feel like I was just existing anymore. I felt like I was alive, like I was finally learning how to breathe, how to let myself want something without apologizing for it. I'd returned to work, to the same old routines, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd left something important behind in that cabin. Someone. The knock on my apartment door caught me off guard, my fingers still mid-type on my laptop. I glanced at the clock. It was late, much too late for a delivery. I stood, heart racing for no reason I could explain, and opened the door. Kellen stood there, looking as out of place as he ever had, with that same unreadable expression. But now, there was something different about him. Something quieter, more certain. His eyes, darker in the soft apartment light, met mine with a kind of vulnerability I hadn't seen before. "I couldn't stay away," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, the words feeling like a confession. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I reached for him, pulling him inside before he could even finish his sentence. The door clicked shut behind him, and in that moment, I knew. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. As he stepped closer, his warmth wrapping around me, I whispered to myself, almost in disbelief. This time, he crept into my life for good, and for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid to let him stay.